Hi guys, welcome to the channel. So today I'm just going to bring you guys into the garden and show you guys how the garden is going, where it's at right now. I did film when we just planted everything, so everything was just freshly put in, and I also filmed, all the prep before we actually got everything in, of course. So yeah, I just wanted to give you an update on my little garden, and I do regular garden beds, but I also do a lot of container gardening depending on what I'm gardening. I find certain things will actually grow even better in a container, so that's how I do it. So yeah, I'll bring you guys into the garden and show you what types of things that I am growing and how they're doing so far. So we put everything in early May, so May 13th is when we planted most of the things. Some of the things are actually already coming up before that, so I will show you guys that as well. And yeah, like there were some seeds that we had planted and the planter was outside, and that was like May 5th, I believe. And then, all the parsley started growing already, so that was doing really well. But yeah, overall, most of the things were put in on the 13th of May, and then I'll show you guys on the 23rd of May what things look like. So I'm really fortunate. I found many types of kale this year, so I'm going to be showing you guys all of that. And I do have them in planters just because I like my kale in my planters. They do best for me where I live in the planters, and less bugs get to them, and I get to basically use my kale until the first few frosts. When things get really cold over here, I can still use up that kale and it's perfectly fine and no bugs have gotten to it. Okay, so thanks so much for being here, guys. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments below what other types of videos you would like to see, and let me know in the comments below what you're growing this year. For me, there's nothing more satisfying than growing your own veggies and going into the garden and picking your fresh produce. I would love to know what types of things you guys are growing where you live. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So this week's video is going to be a garden update video. I'm just going to show you guys what kind of things I am growing and what's happening in my garden. So the garden was a complete disaster, as you can see. I had to de-weed all of the gardens. I had to rip out a bunch of crazy big weeds like that I have never seen in my life before. And then we had this weird little fence on the property, and it was covering these half-dead little tree or shrubs. I don't even know what the heck they were. So those had to be pulled out too. So there was a lot of work that had to be put in before we can actually start planting, because everything was a really big disaster basically. This is our first summer in this home, so basically the backyard was left kind of abandoned and just really run down. So we're just trying to slowly fix things up, and I know everything can't be done in 1 year, but just trying to get it looking as good as possible. So here I was just planning out how I'm going to be doing my garden. So I put up these little fences temporarily, and I actually ended up keeping them because they work really well. And this was like this huge thorn bush that was growing in that garden, so we had to take that down. It was actually kind of dangerous. So I do my normal flower beds and my garden bed, and I also like to do planters. So this was May 2nd, and everything is kind of coming up really well because we did have some warm weather, then it got really cold again, and then it went back to really warm weather. So we've been kind of all over the place here in Toronto. But yeah, so these are like tomato plants that we had started, but they hadn't been doing the best because of this fluctuating temperature that we were getting. And so yeah, so we have parsley coming up really early, which is great. And we had like greens, we had other herbs coming up as well, like onions. So yeah, it was really nice to see that, things were coming along and coming back into the containers really nicely. So yeah, and then we had like this strange, like we had parsley grow in the big garden all of a sudden. So we got some surprises, which was great. So after preparing the garden and getting everything looking better, I got all of those weeds out. There's just a few in the back that kind of keep coming back, but I'm still battling those ones. So the garden was ready to go and I was super happy. I decided to keep the fence because it'll keep the puppy out of the garden because it's really tempting for him to just jump right in. And the containers he's been really good with, so we're really lucky with that. So I just got these fences at Canadian Tire if anybody's wondering. So on May 13th, I planted everything in the ground and got everything prepped and ready. So these are like the tomato plants that I'm putting in, and I got all my kale ready to be planted in the planters. And then I also added some to the big one of it. So this is the tomato plants, on May 23rd, and I think they're doing amazing in that big garden. And I also have lemon balm growing and kale. We also added a little bit of kale in there as well because we couldn't fit everything in the planters. And then I also recently added some zucchini and a little bit of lettuce to the garden. So yeah, everything is coming along and growing really well. So I'm super happy. So I do add wood chips to the garden just because it will keep everything nice and moist. And if there is a day where I can't get to watering, if I'm doing like 3 12-hour shifts in a row and I'm tired and I come back, I know that the wood chips will protect my plants and there will be extra moisture there, so I don't have to worry so much about watering. I feel like it also keeps the ground, around the plant very protected, and my plants just do better when I add the wood chips, so that's why I always add them in, and just make sure that they don't have anything in it that, is toxic to you, just because sometimes there can be some funky things added to wood chips, so just make sure they're just wood chips. So this was one of the flower bed gardens that, I ripped out all the weeds in, and then I just transplanted a lot of the flowers from other areas that I could keep. I just planted there, and some flowers were given to me, and then I bought a few as well to add to that garden. So these are the large containers that I like to put kale in, and I just prepped those, pulled out whatever weeds that were in there, and added a little bit more soil. So I'll just show you guys a before and after of one of my gardens. So this was the transplanted plants from, other places in the garden that I put in there, and some were given to me. And this is the 23rd, and yeah, they are growing so well, so quickly. So yeah, they are really working out great in this area, and once everything grows a little bit bigger, it'll look a lot nicer. And then I also added my wood chips to this garden as well. It's important to have flowers in your garden because you want all those pollinators to come and get your veggies growing at their optimal. So yeah, I just like to add a lot of different flowers and different ones that will call in some butterflies and other things that, my son will really enjoy having in the backyard. And of course, we need those bees. So this is a clip on the 13th when we first planted our kale, and then I just have some flowers in these ones. Don't really know what I'm going to do with those planters yet, but right now they're just there. And some lettuce that was planted on that day too that we had grown from seed, and some kale and another planter. And then this is on the 23rd, how the little lettuce is going. And then here is a strawberry plant in just a hanging basket that I had bought. So I transplanted that into this really large container and added some wood chips there as well. And we're already enjoying some strawberries from it, so that's working out wonderful. So yeah, this is on the 13th, just deciding how I'm going to do my kale because I have like 5 different varieties that I'm growing this year. I was really fortunate to find so many types of kale, so I was so happy. There's certain types of kale, like the dinosaur kale, my kids like better to make, kale chips with, and then there's certain kale that we like for salads, so it really worked out this year that we found so many. And this is what it currently looks like on May 23rd. Everything that I planted is growing really nicely and coming along, so I'm super happy about that. And again, I like having the wood chips in there just because it's going to give off some extra moisture to the plants when we don't get around to watering them as often as we may need to. It's just very helpful, I find, and again, very protecting for the plants. So I think in such a short period of time, everything has grown really well and is really coming along nicely, so I'm very happy. If you are growing veggies, I would love to know what types of veggies you are growing in the garden this year. Like I said earlier, I'm just curious to see, where you live and what you are growing, what works well for the area that you live in. So I grow a lot of kale. I have an abundance of kale every summer because we use it in smoothies, we use it in salads, in sandwiches. We use it as a pesto sauce as well. And then we also tend to juice a lot more in the summer. So that way we don't have to buy expensive kale at the grocery store. We can just go to the backyard and pick what we need and juice as much as we want to and not have to worry about the extra expense of buying so many bunches of kale for the juice. So I'm really fortunate that although I am living in a small home, I do have a backyard and I am able to grow my veggies. Even if I were in an apartment, I would probably still have a lot of planters on my balcony and make, the best use out of the space you have. So in my small garden, I was just trying to see, how many things I can grow and which way was best so that I can have an abundance of veggies in the small space that I do have. So yeah, this was my garden, my spring garden so far, and I'll let you guys know how things are growing. Yeah, thanks again for watching and thanks for all the support on the channel. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week ahead.